Hello everyone, welcome back. So this is going to be the third video for today. We have two more things to talk about. And what we're going to talk about has to do with pretty much everything because it's the idea of documentation. And documentation is a really interesting thing because basically it starts a fight. You either have people who engage with performative practices who say that the document is nothing more than that. It's like a hollow vessel um, of something that happened beforehand. So it's this thing that is just a record, but it is not actually the work of art. And then you have Helguera, who I agree with slightly that there has to be this final document that allows the work to participate in history. And that final document has a lot to do with the aesthetic decisions made by the artist and should reflect those. So here, these two images of Mickelson's performance are taken by reporters. This is not part of the final product. This is also just a snapshot of something. There are records of this event, there are documents of this project, but this is not one of them. This, however, is Vito Acconci's following piece from 1969. Follow different person every day until person enters private place. So simply the action was Acconci, who is seen here in the blazer, walks roughly 8 to 10 feet behind some involuntary participant. And when this involuntary participant enters into a private place, Acconci's action is complete. And so not only do you have Acconci following this person, you also have a photographer following Acconci, at least in a few of these instances. And you can see this photograph exists here. This is the documentation of the project as Acconci sees it. So in the making of this idea, in coming up with how this project was going to work, he developed this grid system of information. And so on it, he has the dates, the times, the events, all the information that's salient or germane, rather, to this project is captured in this rubric. And so this is what Helguera is talking about with regard to documentation. It's not this. This is just a photograph to show people in New York or readers of, Time Out New York or whatever, that, hey, look, there's something going on the fourth floor at the Whitney, because it happens to be the biennial. This is just somebody who has stumbled upon this Hirshhorn or probably come specifically to Forest Houses for it, who takes a picture so that they have a record that they can show their friends that they went to this event. This is Acconci saying that this is my artwork. My artwork looks like this, but it involves a variety of different actions that look like this. So in a way, you could kind of see this as, a Jackson Pollock painting, and this is a drip. And so you have lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of drips all over the place here, making one cohesive whole. And so that's how Helguera describes the document. It's something that is the end result, that is part of the aesthetic vocabulary that developed the project in the first place. So, documentation. Documentation leads us really nicely, really easily into the last thing that I want to talk about, which is history. History. Everybody knows who Marina Abramovich is. And if you don't know who Marina Abramovich is, then you haven't been paying attention to my lectures because I've made you watch quite a few of her things. The Marina Abramovich Institute is something that I've brought up before, but I want to talk to you a little bit more about it today. Simply put, Marina Abramović is regarded as the most important living performance artist today. That title could, slip into Vito Acconci's hands, but he's made some things that have pushed people the wrong way, that have got the wrong kind of press attached to it. Whereas Marina Abramović, specifically in the early 1970s, was doing things that nobody else was doing with her partner Ule, and it is in her legacy, a legacy that she is shaping, that we are witnessing how performance art is trying to be historicized, how it is being written. And what Abramovich engaged with before and into the display of her retrospective at the Museum of Modern Art, The Artist is Present, was a massive critical discourse on how we are to engage with historical works of performance art. Do we restage them? What happens in the restaging? Doesn't that in essence develop a second performance that is kind of in homage to it? What happens in that conversation? And so this is something that if you're interested in, there's a lot of research for you to kind of dive into. Although I do know that very few of the people within our class are really engaged with this idea of repeating a performance project, at least currently. Who knows? Maybe in 10 years you'll be really interested in it. And so in that way, I'm letting you know that it's out there. In the sea of information, you can find it. But so that was leading up to The Artist is Present. And I'm sure she was working on this project at the same time, but she was really kind of, mum was the word. And then all of a sudden, she launches this idea called the Marina Abramović Institute, which is, for her, a way of developing kind of a reliquary for performance practice. And so I want to let her do the talking. Boop. This is her. This is the website.
The first thing, and you enter in a reception hall. In this reception hall, you're going to get the contract. This contract you have to sign, and you give you word of honor that you're going to spend in this institute 6 hours. You were given the lab coats, headphones to completely block any sound, and you have to give your belongings into safety deposit box. So there's nothing remind you on outside world. You're going to now to go to completely another type of reality. First to do is to do slow motion walk. After that, you going to go into eyes gazing chamber, where with the person you never saw in your life, going to have eye contact. After that, you're going to go into the crystal cave. You have to sit with the closed eyes and see how the energy of crystals work on you. After that, you go into levitation chamber. Levitation chamber maybe will be somewhere here. The bed you have to lie on is just expanded in a space on the magnetic force. So you can really feel anti-gravitation kind of experience. After you finish this, you are going into the wheelchair. There's a special wheelchair who the attendant going to wheel you into this main hall where everything else is going to happen. Can be opera, can be theater, can be dance, can be film, music, performance, and the different artists going to make different works. And if the performance is many hours and you fall asleep, you will be rolled into the different place where you're actually going to stay asleep. Then we have library, lecture halls. We're also going to have the science chamber. We're going to have a spiritual chamber. We're going to have the really laboratory. You come here not just to see the work, but you come here to change yourself through the work. You give us your time, but we give you something that is unique. And maybe this experience you can bring in your own life, in your own work, whatever you do. We hope this is going to be future. this is going to be something that never been built before, because in the entire world doesn't exist anything like this institute. There is nothing long durational in that way, and it's nothing immaterial as much as this place.
Yeah, so that's the Marina Abramovich Institute. Um, and the reason why I wanted to talk about that is with regard to performance practice and like where's performance today. For better or for worse, performance today does seem to be in the hands of Marina Abramovich. In the same way that, in the 1970s, painting was in the hands of Willem de Kooning. Yes, historically, we don't regard Willem de Kooning as a painter from the 70s. We don't regard him, at his work from the 70s, as being monumentally important. But his prowess within the chambers of painting was so big in the 1970s that nobody could make a painting without thinking of de Kooning, whether or not they were mocking him or thinking little of his opinion or whatever. Um, they were still thinking of him, and so performers today acknowledge the legacy of Marina Abramovich, and they acknowledge what she has done for the practice and for the whole of the kind of the Bureau of Artistic Research that is performance practice. Um, and in her legacy, or rather in her wake, we are seeing performers respond, and those responses are varied. Um, they incorporate dance in a way that um, hasn't really been incorporated before. I'm going to go to, this is a blog called expandedperformance.tumblr.com. Um, and, uh, we can just scroll through and I can, you see all of these different ways that performers are engaging with the audience, with the space, with movement. Um, and all of this, I would argue, is in the consideration of Marina Abramovich and also of Vito Acconci, and Bruce Nauman and Joseph Beuys, and there's lots of people that can be credited. But you know, if we look at the legacy of performance art and we look at where performance has come, uh, we have to acknowledge that um, Marina Abramovich has helped get us here. She's had a team of people, but if you look at what the Marina Abramovich Institute is, and you look at how it's being received critically, you can really get the sense that that's where performance is today. It's in her shadow, and people are trying dramatically to get out from under that shadow for sure. There's lots of people who are very critical of what Marina Abramovich has done in the last 15 years, myself included. But we all acknowledge that she gets the respect that she deserves, and we all need to find a way to move out of that shadow, but with consideration of it. And so, with that, we're closing our conversation on performance. I'm really hoping that we can have more conversations about performance. I'm really hoping, tremendously hoping, that we can see some sort of performance work while we're in the city, although that seems like it's going to be pretty tough. But anyway, with that, that wraps 3 lectures, and so enjoy.